Hi all. Today we're going to cover creating extremely precise shapes. So we're going to start out by creating a brand new layer. We're going to make this 1024 by 1024, nice square resolution. And we're going to change this color so it's not, well, we can keep the blue, it's not too important. We'll go for a darker color, it's a little bit nicer to have a darker color. So we'll just fill this with our normal charcoal black. We're going to start off by simply making a rectangle shape. There's a couple things to notice here. You can see in the bottom left, whenever we drag and drop down in the bottom left, kind of like right over here, we can see our shape size decrease or increase. But we can actually further refine this for specifics without even having to worry about dragging and dropping. So we're going to come over here and we're going to look at our rectangle select tool. So we can kind of see our position. Right now we're at 385 by 394. This is actually where the top left point starts. And then we have our size. So right now this is 253 by 249. This would have been displayed down here. But we can actually modify this to have very specific detailings. For example, we can make it 256 by 256 image, so you can kind of see that resized a little bit. We can also set the position. So let's say since this is 256 by 256 and our image length is 1024 by 1024, let's offset this to be kind of like in this upper left hand corner. So I'm going to offset this. Each quadrant is basically 512, so this top left quadrant, the total width is 512, 512, 512, 512, and our little square is a dimension of 256, so that's basically half of 512. So we're going to actually use the remaining 256 and split that into two by moving this over to 128. That means there's going to be 128 from the edge of this rectangle to the center. And we're going to actually also do this for the Y as well. So we have a perfectly centered cube within this top left corner. So I'm actually going to create a brand new layer here. We're just going to call this image box. And we're just going to fill this in with, say, that blue color. So we have a perfectly aligned cube within this top left sector. In fact, we can make use of our guides. If you're not familiar, I'll put a link down below. But we can actually place guides. So let's say we'll do vertical at 50%. So this is going to make it from top to bottom. So now we can see that this distance is the exact same as this distance. We can actually further refine this by going to image, guides, or not refine it, but see the exact same thing from the horizontal perspective. But instead of using percentages, we're just going to use new guide to show the same thing as to why this is 512. So our total width is 1024, our height is 1024. So we can do the exact same thing for horizontal. So we'll place this at 512. And now we have bisected our horizontal axis into 512. So it's 512 from here to here and 512 from here to here. And now we can actually see that we have perfect alignments for these particular shapes. And we can actually do the same thing for circles. So if we come over to our selection tool, we did rectangles, we can actually do ellipses. So we can do the same thing. In fact, I'll just make this very large for demonstration's sake. So this is kind of eggy, but we can do the exact same thing. So we're going to offset to this top right corner. So it's 512 from the start, and we moved over 128 from 0. So all we have to do is use 512 plus 128. GIMP allows for these addition symbols, so we can see over in the ellipse select tool, 512 plus 128 is going to move it over to this. Is technically actually 640, but sometimes I like using dimensions halfway. It's a little bit easier, less complex math, and we can kind of do the exact same thing. So this one is actually going to not be in the bottom. Actually, we can move this into the lower right quadrant. So we'll do 512 plus 128, which is still 640, but it's nice to have precision. And we can resize this so it's kind of the exact same thing. So we'll do 256 by 256. And this gives us a nice round circle that is our exact dimensions and also uses 128, 128. And we can also fill this one in. Say we have a, here's a blue color. Let's go for kind of like a pinkish. It's not too important. We'll just go for kind of like a magenta. So we have two separate shapes, and they are perfectly aligned to our positions. In fact, we can actually take this a step further, and we'll actually outline both of these. And if you're not familiar with how to outline, I'll put a link down below for how to outline your shapes. So we'll grow these each by 4 pixels. Actually, let's do 8 pixels. We'll change the outline to be white, create a brand new background, image, shapes, outline, and I'm actually going to rename this layer to be shapes since we have multiple shapes on here. That way it's easier to understand. And we could just fill this in, and now we have 2 separate shapes that are perfectly outlined. With very precise coordinates, because this is 128 by 128 and 128. This one, technically the corner is up here because it aligns to this. It's basically a box outlines. This actually comes to 640 by 640, or 640, not 640 by 640, but 640 on the X and 640 on the Y. So we can actually use this to make very complex shapes. Or sorry, not complex shapes, very precise shape coordinates, which gives us total control of our image, and we can make very useful coordinates with very little effort. So hopefully this helps you with your image creations, and good luck. Cheers, dudes.